So, 34 minutes since the IEC's deadline for political parties to confirm their candidate lists, to submit their candidate lists, has now passed. Cilliers Brink is the DA spokesperson on cooperative governance. Cilliers, good afternoon to you. Firstly, did you get all of your candidates in on time by the 5 o'clock deadline?
Stephen, our candidates were in at the original deadline of the 23rd of August, but yes, indeed, there were a few instances where ward candidates had, for instance, passed away, and so we used the opportunity of the reopening and the confirmation of the Constitutional Court to make those final changes. But in essence, the candidate lists that we submitted on the 23rd of August, the original deadline, was the same.
So you used the opportunity created by the decision that you argued in court against?
Well, absolutely, because, the Constitutional Court has given clarity. We took that decision on review. We asked the Constitutional Court, is this regular? Is this constitutional? Our view was that it wasn't. But now the Apex Court has ruled. We would have lived, of course, with a victory in court and the consequences of a victory. But do you expect us not to take up the opportunity that applies to all parties?
Your party said yesterday you accept the Constitutional Court ruling, you've just said that again, about the reopening of this process, about the reopening of the candidate list registration process. But you say you'll be watching the IEC like a hawk. Why?
Well, we are very concerned about the integrity of the IEC. One of the reasons we put before the court that we wanted the decision to change the election timetable and the reopening of the candidate submissions reviewed was that we suspected the IEC had an ulterior purpose, which was to assist the ANC to solve its problems. As you mentioned, the ANC stood to lose by default in about 20 municipalities and almost 600 wards because they couldn't get their house in order in the run-up to the election. They couldn't abide by the original decision. And our suspicion was that the IEC had taken the gap to assist the ANC. The Constitutional Court said that it was not in a position to make a ruling without oral evidence on that fact. But certainly, Stephen, if we look at how the IEC has treated other political parties in the past, the IFP in 2011, the NFP in 2016, which was completely prevented from even participating in that local government election, and that the way the IEC has treated the ANC, there is an inconsistency. And of course, we have to be vigilant in a dominant party democracy with a governing party that has hegemonic aspirations. We will be watching the IEC to make sure that this election is free and fair and that the IEC fulfills its constitutional obligations.
But the fact is, Cilliers, that you have absolutely no evidence to back up your claim. Just because, and the facts are completely different on the cases that you quote. In this case, the court, the entire process of the proclamation of the elections was reopened. That was not the case in the IFP matter or the NFP matter. You and the chair of your federal council, Helen Zille, has made claim after claim about the IEC with absolutely no evidence whatsoever to back it up. And when you do that, you affect the legitimacy of the entire electoral process. In other words, when you make a claim without evidence, you damage the entire electoral process in this country.
Well, Stephen, if we had not produced any evidence, or if our case before the Constitutional Court was completely unreasonable, surely that cost order which the ANC had sought against us would have been granted. Instead, the Constitutional Court said that the DA's application was not without merit, and also it declined to say whether there was an ulterior purpose on the part of the IEC. In fact, it left the door open and said if subsequently, in subsequent proceedings, evidence is produced of such ulterior purpose, the court would be happy to look at that. So, there are very legitimate concerns. Now, you've distinguished the NFP and the IFP cases, but the point is that those cases are not completely dissimilar. The IEC was just simply refusing to even entertain the possibility of extending the election timetable in those other two instances.
Cilliers, they did in this case.
And then there's a final point, Stephen. There's a final point, which is that the ANC brought an electoral court application to get their candidates in, to get the deadlines extended, and then they withdrew that application. So our question is, there is sufficient basis for us to suspect that the IEC is favoring the ANC, and we will monitor them to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Cilliers Brink, we'll leave it there. Thank you. The DA's Shadow Minister for Cooperative Governance.